So this weekend, as the excitement of having a wonderful bhikkhuni ordination ceremony began to die down, then I had a chance to reflect a bit about my hope to do something over the next few months about the practice of peace. And a certain idea occurred to me. I didn't exactly see this given in exactly this way in the way the teachings are presented, but I think it may be relevant. It seems to me that a lot of the time conflict comes from fear. And there's a particular set of practices. It's been up for us recently. It's 3 words: the gratification, the danger, and the escape. So we think about, say, this individual is made up of the body, feelings, sensations, perceptions, volitional formations, and consciousness. And all of those things are really great and wonderful. I'm so grateful to have a body. It's so nice to still have eyes that sort of work, to still have ears that more or less are able to hear. What a privilege to be able to connect with the world through the sense faculties. So there is this gratification to possess a body. It makes us feel like we're really alive, that we really exist, because we can connect with the world through this body. So there's the gratification, right? But the danger is impermanence. The body won't last. Already it's not as good as it used to be. And it's going downhill fast. And so then we realize that if we identify with the body, we're going to be in trouble, because we're clinging to a ship which is about to run across into an iceberg or something and sink to the bottom of the ocean. So it's not a safe refuge, but there is an escape from the danger of clinging to and identifying with the body, and that is going beyond any kind of like delight in clinging with the body. So we got this practice, but there's another aspect of it. In modern psychology, something that if a person has got a phobia or a fear, if you suppose you're afraid of spiders or afraid of insects, it's called a systematic desensitization, where you would gradually, in a kind of like an organized way, first to like be able to look at a picture of a spider, or look at a spider which is in a bottle, and gradually get used to spiders and come out of your reactivity of that fearful reaction. And it occurred to me that like in the Satipatthana Sutta, when they give the contemplation of the body, the bulk of that contemplation in the Satipatthana Sutta is contemplating the charnel ground meditations, visualizing the decomposition of the dead body in the graveyard or in the charnel ground. And so, in that way, it's really confronting the most profound fear that people have, which is the fear of death. And inviting us right at the very beginning of this meditation to face up to that fear in a way which is methodical, organized, and actually a very safe way of approaching it. So you're not necessarily going into a slaughterhouse or a battlefield or a place where beings are being killed and immediately facing that, but instead you're in the safety of your meditation cushion, using your mind and your imagination to visualize your own body or any body after it has deceased and becomes just like a lump, a useless lump of a body laying on the ground, and then going through those stages of decomposition in which the body, which at first, if it's a freshly a deceased body, could be very upsetting to see, or if it's a rotten body which is infested by insects and with maggots crawling in and out of it, might be very upsetting to see. But then later on, the body becomes, the flesh goes away and it just becomes a skeleton bone. And maybe, if you're walking in the forest or something and you come across the skeleton of a dead animal, it's not arousing as much visceral fear as it would be if you encountered a body that had just been killed. And then later, when it's just a scattered bone and you just come across in the forest or something, you see some little piece of a bone, and then the fear is not as visceral as it was before. Or if you see and visualize that the entire body returns to dust, and all of the elements just go back to their elements, then one may perhaps have a sense of resolution, or a sense of the cycle of life, that the elements in the body have gone back into the soil and could become the nutriment for some plant to grow or for some new body to come up. Would you please invite the cat to go away? We've got the doors open because of visitors, but I think the cat might be giving somebody an allergic reaction if she comes in and joins us for this meditation. Here's a passage in the sutta about the dangers. This is in the Girimananda Sutta. Which is it's a wonderful meditation, a wonderful, like a course of meditation, all given just within this one sutta. It's called Girimananda Sutta. It's in the Book of Tens in the Anguttara Nikaya. So, what is the perception of danger? This is perceptions that can be used for calming and for release, for awakening. Here, Ananda, a bhikkhu who has gone to the forest, or to the foot of a tree, or to an empty abode, considers this body is full of suffering. It has many dangers. Thus, in this body, various afflictions arise: illness of the eyes, illness of hearing, illness of the nose, illness of the tongue, illness of the body, illness of the head, illness of the ear, illness of the mouth, infirmity of the teeth, coughing, asthma, excess mucus, heat, fever, illness of the abdomen, fainting, dysentery, acute pain, cholera, leprosy, abscesses, skin disease, consumption, epilepsy, skin eruption, itch, scabs, nail scratch, scabies, afflictions through blood and bile, diabetes, paralysis, cancer, ulcers, afflictions arising from bile, afflictions arising from phlegm, afflictions arising from wind, afflictions arising from the union of the humors of the body, afflictions arising from the changes of seasons, afflictions arising from abuse of the body, afflictions arising from self-mutilation, afflictions arising from the result of kama, cold, heat, hunger, thirst, diarrhea, urinary affliction. Thus he dwells, reflecting on the dangers of the body. This is said to be the perception of danger. To this extent, we could say in a certain way that Buddhism has an affinity with Stoic philosophy. The Stoic philosophy makes a distinction between the things that they believed that one could control and the things that were not subject to control. So the weather or the diseases afflicting the body or the inevitability of death is not something that can be controlled. And so therefore it's essential to overcome any kind of tendency to be upset, reactive, to be driven and motivated to do anything unskillful to try to undo that which is not controllable by us. So obviously in the practice of medicine there is the effort to do the treatment of disease. But if the physician believed that through the practice of medicine they would be able to prevent death, then they'd be in a lot of trouble because they can't prevent death. Or if they thought that disease could be prevented absolutely and made to come down to a bare minimum so that beings would all live to an age of 120 and not be subjected to disease, and so then you just get into a contest with nature. It's kind of like a war on nature to try to imagine that nature can be exactly conquered in that way. But then by being at peace with all of the process of the body, and being equanimous with it, then we wouldn't have the fear of death or the fear of illness triggering or unskillful clinging to life unskillful identification with having a healthy body, unskillful anxiety about keeping a healthy body, unskillful anxiety about identification with having a certain kind of body, a healthy body, or a beautiful body, or something like that. I think that the Dhamma then goes way past that sense of just becoming equanimous about external things that are not within our personal control. The Buddha invites us to examine the five aggregates and to question whether we're really in control of these five aggregates or not. The Buddha said, is this body permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent. And so, if the body were permanent, one could just, or if one were able to be in control of the body, if the body were a self, and one were in control of the body, you could just say, let my body be this way, let my body be that way, and the body would do what we told it to do. But the body doesn't always do what we couldn't tell it to do. Here's a philosophy joke. I learned it from a philosopher named, I think it's Robert Searle. He's a famous philosopher. He said he can use his mind to cause an object to move. He can use his mental power to make an object move. And so what he does, he uses mental power, and he says, hand go up. And the hand comes up, and this, hand go down. And the hand goes down. So in that way, we do have some control over the body, but we don't, so we get the delusion that we're in control of this body, it's my body. But it's not really your body, and in the end, you're not in control of it. And also, you're not in control of your feelings, you're not in control of your perceptions, you're not in control of your volitional formations or your intentions. You're only, you're a little bit, partly, in some ways, able to make some choices about those things, like which kind of feelings you welcome and which kind of feelings you're willing to let go of, which kind of thoughts or intentions you welcome and try to cultivate, and which ones you don't welcome and you want to let them go, let them be abandoned. So in that way, we do have some agency over these things, but ultimately we have a very small percentage of control over these five aggregates that make up what sometimes we have the delusion that this is the self that we identify with. And so if we don't know about that, if we don't see the danger when we think that we're able to control any part of the five aggregates. It takes us down so many wrong pathways and wrong directions, not leading us to, actually not leading us to liberation. This liberation is not really accomplished towards control. It's coming about by exerting energy in line with reality to set up the conditions for awakening, and then allowing our release from clinging and craving, allowing our release from unskillful kinds of reactivity to develop because of the course of nature. And even at the most profound level, the arising of the insight into non-self and the falling away of those delusions and the falling away of big chunks of our previous habitual ways of reaction is all happening in a way which is following a course of nature. It's not because there's a self, that our own self is controlling something. It's rather that we've learned how to let go and how to get out of the way and how to set up the right kind of conditions. So, but there is a very significant way that if you just realize giving up your ownership and control over the things that are not in your control can then lead to so much greater calmness, so much greater peacefulness, so much greater tranquility. And learning how to overcome the fear of death by desensitizing that kind of like an intuitive or habitual kind of horror and revulsion that our fear, our anxiety, our panic that a person can say when they, if they haven't thought about it, when they encounter death and the mind is not prepared. And that way we prepare the mind to be present, open, and accepting for reality the way it actually is. There's one other sutta I want to read you about dangers. And this one of our students actually pointed this out. And this is both in terms of using that desensitization to face up to realities, but also using the awareness of impermanence to strengthen our, I'm just going to say to change our framework. So the Buddha said, this is Anguttara 5.77 about future dangers. The Buddha said, these 5 future dangers are just enough when considered for a monk living in the wilderness, heedful, ardent, and resolute, to live for the attaining of the as yet unattained, for the reaching of the as yet unreached, the realization of the as yet unrealized. Which 5? There's a case where a monk living in the wilderness reminds himself of this. I'm now living alone in the wilderness. While I'm living alone in the wilderness, a snake might bite me, a scorpion might sting me, a centipede might bite me. That would be how my death would come about. That would be an obstruction for me. So let me make an effort for the attaining of the as yet unattained, the reaching of the as yet unreached, the realization of the as yet unrealized. That's the first future danger. The second one, while I'm living alone in the wilderness, stumbling, I might fall. My food digested might trouble me, my bile might be provoked, my phlegm, and so on through the diseases, piercing wind forces in the body might be provoked, and that would be how my death would come. That would be an obstruction for me. So let me make the effort for the attaining of the as yet unattained, for reaching the yet unreached, realizing the yet unrealized. And then the third danger. while living alone in the wilderness. I might meet up with youths on their way to committing a crime or on their way back. They might take my life. That would be how my death would come about. That would be an obstruction for me. So let me make an effort for the attaining the as yet unattained, reaching the as yet unreached, realization of the as yet unrealized. That's the fourth danger. Or else in the wilderness, vicious non-human beings might take my life, and that would be how my death would come about. Again, that would be an obstruction. So let me make an effort for realizing the as yet unattained, reaching the as yet unreached, realization of the as yet unrealized. So, in this case, you could say that certain factors can be triggering for an unwholesome emotional response, such as this panic or anxiety or fear, anger, clinging, and so forth like that. But at some kind of intermediate level for a trainee, one who has seen that there is an escape, then encountering these dangers can be because our whole concept has shifted. And looking at death, realizing how uncertain life is, how there's, and actually the levels of uncertainty that are faced by our society today are maybe even greater than those which the Buddha spoke about as the dangers of running into some criminals or running into a wild animal is one thing, but in modern times we're so flooded with information, and we have this tremendous economic uncertainty or climate uncertainty, and the whole, it seems like the whole of our civilization may come crumbling down, and everything that we try to build our lives for may come crumbling down and may fail us. That the whole basis of our life may could fail us, and so people are suffering a lot with this chronic anxiety. But then, if we can just come to the point of being able to see there is an escape, and then reorganizing our way of seeing the world, then that very awareness is the opportunity for urgency to arise, for enthusiasm to practice, to continue making the effort, whatever we've not yet done, to develop in our practice. There are also kinds of moral dangers that can happen to people if that falling into different kinds of delusions and emotions. They could do something unskillful. They could speak in a way that was unskillful. They could speak or act in a way that was harmful to themselves or harmful to others. And that's creating a tremendous karmic danger to themselves, that those unskillful behaviors, if they're not taken care of properly, could become habits And if they become habits, it can become a way of life that can lead to staying in this round of samsara for a long time, or it could even lead us into realms and experiences of great personal sufferings that can be a tremendous obstacle for the even having the opportunity to be able to hear the Dhamma or to cultivate wisdom. And so those moral dangers are dangers indeed. And it's possible, just as like the fear of spiders or the fear of death, that one could have like a panic, anxiety reaction, which is not productive, not wholesome, or else one could have a wholesome, useful kind of a response that says, oh, danger, danger, let me take this opportunity to practice better. And so just the same way, I think if you yourself or anybody who's around you in life falls into the moral danger of committing unwholesome, negative, and dangerous karmas that can lead them into further suffering, that then this can cause, even for a skillful practitioner, this can cause not only anxiety and fear because of like fear of death or fear of suffering or fear of pain, but it can cause all kinds of unskillful like outrage, righteous indignation, anger, the desire to punish, the desire to harm, the feeling like warlike feelings, like I have to go to battle against either that which in myself is an evil karma, so that then thinking of like picking up a sword to make a war of good against evil, that's a complete danger. So we got to have a completely different kind of a concept, so that when we encounter those kinds of dangers, when we encounter moral dangers, either within our own self because of our mistakes or habits, or whether in someone that we're close to that we care about, or whether it's somebody that we don't care about, then we have got to let that be absolutely the trigger for compassion and wisdom to arise. We've got to, in a way, like desensitize ourselves to the possibility of unwholesome and unskillful karmas to be done. We know that unskillful things are happening all the time in our past. We've had so many unskillful karmas that we did in the past. All of us, without exception, have done a ton of unskillful karmas in the past. We hope through our practice to go beyond karma, to do the wholesome and beneficial karmas which are leading towards the end of all karmas, towards the end of the cycle, the round of samsara. So if we encounter that kind of moral danger, we got to train the mind, so that's when we become really calm, really stabilized, very clear, with complete mindfulness, with the mindfulness that can see, like being aware of this moral danger. How is this manifesting in my body? What kind of feeling is arising because of that? What kind of perceptions are arising because of that? What kind of intention is arising because of that? What kind of state of mind is arising because of that? And to be able to come home to the place of calm and clarity very quickly. It's like when seeing a moral danger, that's like the most important time of all, to be able to quickly come home to this place of clearness, calmness, and mindfulness. And then for one's own self, what I remember that the Buddha said is that if a person has done something unwholesome, if they would recollect, the Blessed One recommends not to do unwholesome things. So let me undertake the adhitthana, the determination right now, to relinquish and let go of these unwholesome things, and to undertake that which is wholesome. And so in that way, first we take care of ourselves, and then at least we can be peaceful within ourselves. And if we've got the talent, we may be a person who is able to communicate peace so that others around us who are in trouble may be able to, when they see us, see that there's another way, that there's a way out. Wouldn't it be wonderful if somebody else could see there is an escape because they saw something in us? So that would be the social dimension of this practice of peace that I think could have a good starting point if we consider the problem of fear and try to work in a very methodical way to change our framework so that when something fearful comes along, we've got a very different kind of response, a skillful response, that fear is the invitation to be more mindful and more clear and more calm and more kind. I shall pause now. There's, I know that some of you who are in Virginia are already up late at night, and so if you need to go, I understand, and those who would like to stay for another approximately 30 minutes, I'd be very happy to hear any questions or comments that others. And since we still have the presence with us of Ayya Maharajina, I think I'm going to say, if you have anything you'd like to add about this topic.
Sadhu, that was a lovely topic. You were very
Do you want to talk to the mic?
thorough.
Just say something so I think about it a minute.
My only comment, Ayya, is Sadhu. That was a very lovely and comprehensive Dhamma desana. That was also on a very practical level complete. So Sadhu, thank you.
And now I shall call on Maureen.
I am going to go to bed now, but that was so helpful. I really appreciate that Dharma talk. Thank you very much, Ayya. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Mitakanti is going to say something.
I was just reflecting on your talk, Ayya, and I was thinking about the connection between the theme of peace and the bhavatana, and how the sense of like deep peace can almost be challenging, because being very peaceful can also feel like you almost stop existing in a way. It can be a challenging experience to be very peaceful. So I wonder if you have anything to comment on that.
Vibhavatanha is the bhavatanha, the craving, bhavatanha, yes, the craving for existence. Right. So traditionally, bhavatanha is expressed in terms of the craving for a heavenly existence. So a person who's very disillusioned and disappointed in having this flesh and blood type of body, which is subject to so many problems, and living among the human race, which is sort of like living in a cesspit sometimes compared with having a heavenly existence. So then they can have a craving for a wish for eternal life in a state that's heavenly, that's divine and bright, where a life of pleasant feeling, even a life of tranquil, pleasant feeling, because they say that in heaven everything you see is beautiful. What you touch is very pleasant and soft and nice, and everything that you smell smells sweet and nice, and everything that you hear is very beautiful and musical, and also your thoughts, anything that you think of is a very pleasant, nice, beautiful thought. And so then the danger is that it's a very big detour. You can get along sort of like partway there, like in other faith traditions. You can become quite good and quite happy and be quite fearless and have a sense of inner safety because your contemplation is a contemplation of a heavenly existence, or a contemplation of that you are dedicated to a God who is all good, who is nothing but kind, who only wishes for your true welfare and your happiness, and who loves you like a good shepherd. And then you put your confidence there, and you live this happy spiritual life, aiming for heaven, to be with your Savior in heaven. And you can have it if you want it. You can go to heaven and live with your Savior in heaven. The only trouble is that, according to our understanding, that heaven is not eternal. And so you will have then spent 84,000 eons in heaven without having come to the end of suffering. So that's the danger. At a more primitive, basic level, people who are in love with this existence, this human existence, they've got a bhavatanha where they like their own human existence and they want to keep it. And that could be especially true of people who don't yet have personal experience of death or see death as inevitable, that they're just trying to keep themselves forever young, forever beautiful, or even it can happen in terms of people who identify with their lineage, and they think that they have some eternal life by having children. And so then they would like to build up their wealth and become a millionaire or a billionaire and give their inherited wealth to their children. And they send the children to the very best high quality preschool. They have very special nannies who will be teaching the children multiple languages while the children are only like 1 year old or 2 years old or something, and send the children to these very high quality prep schools so the children can become extremely highly accomplished, because they think that if they do that and make sure the children will be so accomplished, then the children will also get to be millionaires and billionaires, and that they will be able to survive and live. And then even if because of the wars and disasters of the world, that all of the common ordinary people will all be wiped out, but somehow that my clan is going to be able to like survive. So that's another kind of a bhava tanha, which is very like mundane and worldly, and it's just a waste of time. That's all it is. It's just I say that because humans have this bhava tanha, we become so accomplished, and our civilization is able to accomplish so many things that our race is capable of destroying all of the other forms of the species in the world and bringing about the end of life on this world because of having these brains with so much intelligence, which is trying to protect the existence of our kind without being concerned about all. So it leads to a lot of negative consequences. I'm not sure that was what you were looking for, but that's what I think. Richard.
Thank you. That story of that philosopher that you mentioned, where he said he can move matter with his mind, and then he says, "Okay, hand," right, and moves it down. My original Buddhist teacher mentor, he told me once he was having a conversation with a person that I knew as well, but I wasn't there for that conversation. Another person I knew. And that person was very attached to magical, let's call it magical thinking. And so finally, he was talking with him about Buddhist philosophy, and the person got upset because he was attached to some other religion. And he said, "Well, if you're really so advanced," he says, "can you walk through that wall?" And my mentor said, "That wall?" And he said, "Yeah, that wall." And so my mentor got up and he went out the door and left. So anyway, everybody, when you told that story, reminded me of that story. So, but another thing I wanted to mention, it's a little off topic. I've been studying the Vinaya lately, and from the beginning, and I noticed that Buddha is talking about in the early part about Dhamma Vinaya, which is being translated as, Dhamma and discipline, right? But that's before he's even given any rules about Vinaya yet. And as a matter of fact, in the Vinaya, it finally comes to a point where Ananda asks him, about other Buddhas and how long their teaching lasted. And he said, well, some gave a lot of explanation and theirs lasted longer. Others just sort of understood the minds of the listeners and just dealt specifically with that. And theirs didn't last as long. And then they gave rules, some gave a lot of rules, and that helped also. And then, so Ananda then bows to him and says, "Oh, now is the time, Lord, why don't you give us the rules?" And the Buddha says, "No, the Tathagata will know, the time and place, for giving the rules." But this phrase, Dhamma Vinaya, had already been expressed several times before that. And, through the Vinaya. And I was it made me think about it. Well, then what was Buddha referring to earlier when he was talking about Dhamma Vinaya? And now this is just my opinion. Nobody has to accept it. And but all of a sudden it just occurred to me that the Four Noble Truths, the first three truths are Dharma, are explaining the way the universe works and how it can cease. And the fourth noble truth is the way, the path, and Vinaya. And Vinaya actually can be translated as like, like the discipline or something. You know what I mean? The way that one can accomplish something, right? And so I just my conjecture, but I believe that in the early part, before he gave any rules or regulations for the monks beyond the precepts, that that it was a way of describing his Dhamma and discipline, in terms of like the Four Noble Truths. Anyways, just my opinion, but thank you very much for listening.
Yes, indeed, you're exactly on point. The Vinaya is more a broad term for the path of practice. So you could say that the Dhamma are the ideals, or the wisdom or the understanding of the ideas, and then the practices that we undertake for the realization that you could say, our way of life. That's our Vinaya, how we live. They said that the Buddha is perfect in conduct and understanding. So being perfect in conduct was his Vinaya. Being perfect in understanding is his Dhamma. Yeah. I hear that there's a buzzing noise coming through the computer, and I'm sorry that I can't do anything about it. So we must tolerate it. Maisie, do you have something to add? Oh, wait, I see Arthur's raised a hand. Let me call on Arthur first, and then Maisie, if you have something, I'll call you then. Arthur, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you, Ayya. I really enjoyed that meditation. Got a little calmer than I have for a while, so thank you. Also, the talk, I really related to it. As far as the hand thing, I used to make that same joke that I do have self-control because I can move my body. And it's funny, I actually lost the ability to lift my wrist like this last year. I just recently got it back. I had some nerve damage. So I actually lost the ability to move my hand. And it was terrifying for a long time. And as it came back, I don't know, it kind of gave me almost like a type of resilience because it showed me the difference between things that I really can't do and things that like I may not mentally want to do enough. Like this, my arm really stopped working. No matter how much I wanted to move it, it wouldn't move. But most days I can do things with myself, right? I can meditate or I can practice or do something. So it kind of increased my ability to be determined. And also like the idea of the adhitthana, determination, has really been resonating with me because I feel like I've been doing that the last few months. I've been making changes in my life. And it can get one question I have about that and what Ayya said in terms of what we can and cannot do, that mostly we can choose what to invite and what to let go. And that we only have a certain percentage of control. And I see it that way too. And I sometimes wonder what is my job? What do I control or do not control? Because obviously it feels very not self. It fluctuates. Like sometimes I feel like really in control. Like I can accomplish my goals throughout the day, and then other times no. So it's just finding that balance of what can I do? How much can I do if I become determined? How much should I aspire to? Sometimes that becomes a confusion. Like, and am I even really, doing any of that?
Well, Bhikkhu Bodhi, in one of his talks that I remember, speaks about karma as being like in the mental continuum, there are certain habits. And then the habits, it has a tendency to repeat itself. So in doing something that's not wholesome, or thinking a thought that's not wholesome, it has its tendency to repeat itself. So then, if it's just like purely going by chance, there's going to be sort of a mixture of wholesome and unwholesome. But if one is choosing that which is wholesome and beneficial, then it's setting up conditions that then you're not required to be like constantly controlling all of it. It's just the conditions will perpetuate themselves. But you're gradually getting it so that like the majority vote in your mind is moving towards the wholesome and not towards the unwholesome. And then gradually, as like I've got this feeling that what you can see depends on where you stand. And so then as the set of habits that are the shift of the framework, like a shift of your view, that you're looking in a different way or looking in a different direction. It's like if I'm practicing meditation, if I've got a backache or something, or my knee hurts, I may choose to particularly direct awareness to the sensation in my hand, because my hand is not painful as my knee is painful. And so I can, if I'm not able to, if that helps me to stay steady in my meditation, I can choose that. Or else, if I have a mixture of things that happen, and when so this is hypothetical, not reality. If you said, I'm really angry and I can't take it anymore, then I could choose to think about the thing that's making me angry, or else I could choose to think about something else. Just because something true is true, that doesn't mean that I have to focus on it. Just because it's true that so-and-so always does that to me, I don't have to keep obsessively thinking about that. I can think about something else. I can think about a thought that gives rise to compassion or some other thought. And so the habits change. As the habits change, our situation changes, and then we're able to see different things. And then as we see different things, then it's possible for our conceptual framework, our way of thinking, evolves. And then the change becomes self-perpetuating. So the choices that you make are incrementally creating different habits or different pathways for the mind. And then they continue by themselves. You don't have to be building up an entire, a skyscraper of goodness, and you're carrying the whole skyscraper in order to reach the goal. Instead, you just build it bit by bit, and it carries itself. That's my idea. Maisie, I almost called on you before. Would you like to add something? Or say hello?
Okay, Ayya. Yeah, hi, Ayya. Good to see you.
Yes.
Thank you for your Dhamma talk. So I just want to share some reflection on your talk today on fear. So I tend more towards aversion than greed. So fear is my biggest practice in this life, which is to learn the opposite of fear would be faith. So and now that you're talking about control, and I just remember how sometimes I use the practice to control fear.
Yeah.
Rather than using faith, and also intention. So I've been looking at my intention lately, that what is my intention in the practice? So my intention in the practice is to realize the deathless, and to realize the deathless, faith is required so that I can see through fear with love. And it reminds me of what Pema Chodron said about loving my suffering.
Yeah.
So that's why I've been doing a lot more than
Yeah.
before. So love my suffering. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you for that beautiful reflection. Let's come to our closing now. We will pay respects to the Triple Gem. Araham Samma Sambuddha Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhamman Namasami Subharipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Samham Namami.
Thank you, Ayya. We bow to our teacher.
Nibbana Pacho Hotu. May you have the conditions for awakening.
Thank you, Ayya. Good night.
Okay, good night, everybody.